Welcome to another insightful episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. In this podcast, Mary Catherine Johnson and Evan Johnson highlight the successes and struggles of parents in business. They share how to be the example of success in entrepreneurship to foster the same in your child, and so much more. Are you ready to power up?
Okay, welcome everybody to another very, very exciting episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. I've got my lovely co-host slash mom with me here as always, and we have something very exciting today. We've got two guests, Mark and Ashley Haney, father and daughter. Welcome, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
So let's, I guess, start with Mark and then we'll do Ashley. For people who are unfamiliar with you guys and what you do, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, in terms of entrepreneurship, I own a number of businesses. I've been an investor for the last several years. After selling my companies about 10 years ago, started an entrepreneurial podcast and began making investments. My latest thing that I'm super excited about is something called the Growth Factory. It's a world-class accelerator with an accompanying venture fund. And we're building it so that we have a backyard advantage, rallying the leaders of Sacramento to support the cause.
There we go. That's amazing.
Yeah, he's big shoes to fill. So I'm Ashley Haney. I'm Mark's daughter. I am a residential and commercial real estate broker here in the greater Sacramento area. I specialize in everything from first-time homes to investors to luxury properties. And so I have my own company called Haney Real Estate. I also serve on a lot of nonprofit things, and I am a director for the California Association of Realtors and was the youngest president for Placer County Association of Realtors. So I buy and sell homes, I flip homes, make people's homeownership dreams come true while making more friends.
That's impressive.
It's a mouthful.
And I think that even sells her a bit short, because I think within Placer County, she's one of the premier realtors in the region. She's got a small team under her, and she really does a lot of business in addition to all the different things she does in the community. So consider her dad very proud.
Oh my goodness, isn't that amazing?
So Mark, have you been an entrepreneur pretty much your entire life, or adult life anyway?
Well, my first entrepreneurial endeavor was a newspaper route that my brother and I had as kids. We ended up building up the route pretty nicely and then created an auction where we actually sold the company and had somebody bidding against two young men bidding against one another, and bought the newspaper route from me. And then after my mom and dad were entrepreneurs, and they had a TV shop, and my brothers and I ended up buying that and turning it into video stores and growing that, and then ended up being in the security camera business. So I had my own business since my mid-20s.
Wow, okay. And then how did that translate then, Ashley, when you were growing up, seeing Mark as an entrepreneur? Was that kind of what made you decide to become an entrepreneur as well?
No, I never grew up thinking I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I do think, though, that there were basic principles that were instilled in us as children that helped to shape my mindset. But I never grew up thinking I would be in the real estate space or I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't even think I knew what that word was. I did read Rich Dad, Poor Dad many times at his request, maybe punishment, maybe pleasure, we're not quite sure. But, just instilling some of those principles in myself as a young age. My job as a child, I was a high level athlete. So I would watch my dad go to work and I would mimic that when I was in the gym. I was a high level gymnast as a kid. So.
Wow. Okay.
She was a super hard worker, and she ended up getting a scholarship to UC Davis, graduated from Davis in like 3 years, something like that. She's got a college scholarship in diving, but she really, I think if there's one thing that I was lucky about with both kids, actually, I have two children, they both ended up with very, very good work ethic and kind of just achievement oriented as a personality trait.
And there was a lot of competition in our home. So even on the weekends, we'd have running races, or we'd see who could do a handstand the longest, or anything in our family was a competition. And so I think that that competitive nature also translates into the entrepreneurial mindset.
Wow. So let me ask you this, Mark, because I see you're kind of in the middle generation. You said your parents had their business, you have a business, and now Ashley, and I don't know if your son is also, but you're kind of that middle ground, right? So I really do believe that really what helps us create success is our mindset. It's not just skills, it's not just what we can do as a work, as a job, but really how we look at things. And so if you could take for me, Mark, what you saw from your parents in building their businesses, and how you hopefully stood maybe on their shoulders in terms of a mindset and were able to start a little higher, let's say, and improve on that for yourself, and then also allow for your kids to stand on your shoulders and help them kind of start a little higher in that mindset as well. Do you agree with that analogy? And if so, how did you do that?
I do agree that having good parents is a big benefit. I know that my parents were pretty tough on us kids, but they also gave us a lot of freedom. Ashley used we ended up taking the best of and some of the worst of what our parents do with raising us. I think probably passing that along to the next generation. But my parents allowed for the competition as well. In fact, we were 3 brothers and a sister, all 1 year apart. And if one of us felt like they were getting picked on, my parents would actually say, come in here and fight it out, right? They would encourage, well, don't be a tattletale, right? You guys, if you got a problem, you take it up direct. So I think some of those basic survival instincts kicked in. They showed up in sports with my brothers and sister and me. We were, tried to be athletic in our own way. But I don't think I had this dream of being an entrepreneur either. It was, the word didn't even exist, I don't think, when I was a kid. But I'm kind of like somebody who really likes being on a team. I really like being on championship teams. And so at times you sort of look around and go, if we want to build a championship team, maybe I'm well positioned to sort of lead it. I was the guy in high school that threw the parties that other people wanted to come to, charge people to get into the parties, and so on. So I was always kind of the guy that threw the parties. And so in the video stores, I took some of what was helpful to me in high school in terms of social, interactions, and basically kept throwing the party. I'm still throwing it. I started throwing it in video stores. I threw it in security cameras, and now I'm throwing it in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So I really think that I look like my parents enjoyed work. And so if there's something, to answer your question, that I take away from my parents, they never acted like, they lived it, right? It was like they lived for my high school football and stuff like that, and the family business. And so I took that as, do what you love. You never work a day in your life, because that's how my parents lived it.
Yeah. And then Ashley, same with you. How are you helping your kids? I mean, your kids are what ages again?
They're 8 and 10, so they're still pretty young, but just setting that mindset. I love what you said about mindset. And when we grew up, we always lived by the motto, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And so it's not always about talent. It's about what you're going to set your mind to, and tenacity and moving forward. So it wasn't always easy for us growing up. I mean, frankly, we were the poor kids at school, and my parents spent all the money they had to send me to private school and go to my gymnastics. And there wasn't a lot of extra. My mom was the HR director for the city of Roseville. She had a very stable job that obviously I didn't know their finances at the time, but I knew there was a point in time where we couldn't stop at Jamba Juice on the way home, and it humbled me. And so I'm trying to translate that into my kids as well, because I had been a single mom. I just got married a month ago. So I've been a single mom for the last 7 years. And that has also humbled me in different ways. But my goal is to show my kids that whatever you set your heart to, you can do. They may or may not like having to go show homes with me or check out flip properties, but they also get to see the gratification of buying a home that is distressed, watching the progression, watching it sell. And we always celebrate every sale. So guess what? There was a sacrifice made by our entire family. So every time a deal closes, we go out and celebrate. And I say, hey, remember when we had to go in the car or you had to do something you weren't interested in? That's why we get to go get a prize today. So just really putting those values in 8 and 10-year-olds, that you can do it too, but it does take a family sacrifice. And in any entrepreneurial journey, it is a family sacrifice. So that's my goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then thinking about how your kids, you just mentioned being involved in the business in the sense of understanding the sacrifice that has to go along with it. Are you looking at all in, or how might you be looking at your business to allow for them to grow in certain roles or gain certain skills or things like that? Have you at all looked at how that might happen?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit early to set that tone, because my parents did an awesome job of letting me follow my heart and, my passion. They always supported me along the way, but they kind of let me find my own journey. So I don't want to push any avenue, but I want to expose them to as many things as possible. So my daughter, if you look on her summer bucket list, one of her things is answer the phone at mommy's work. So just being able to answer a phone call or have to sit quietly in the back seat when I'm on $1 million phone call. That's a life skill, and they get to hear verbiage that other kids don't get to hear. And I guess I didn't really understand how much of an impact it was making on them until I have 2 stepchildren now. Bonus children that I got to bring into my life who are also 8 and 10. Both of their parents are in law enforcement, so they've never been exposed to anything entrepreneurial. They, just watching it through their eyes over the past few years, really come into their own. My stepdaughter the other day said, when I grow up, I want to be in real estate. And it brought a tear to my eye. And I said, guess what? She's an artistic, creative type. I don't know that I even see her in a sales role, but I got to explain to her, guess what? In real estate, you can draw homes, you can design homes, or you can sell them too, right? There's a lot of aspects. And luckily for me in my business, it's a relationship business. So they get to watch me procuring relationships all day long. So I just instill, be a part of your community, build relationships, and be authentic. And whatever you want to do, there will be opportunities. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm the first person in my family to be in real estate. If one of my kids says, hey, I want to be in real estate, heck yeah, I'm in. They've got a red carpet rolled out for them because of the business we're creating. But I don't expect that. But I will absolutely support any endeavor they want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how you said that you understood your stepdaughter is creative. So really, I think the key is tapping into their own strengths and their own desires and their own talents and the things they want to work at, and helping flourish in those things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. My son's a measure twice, cut once. My daughter is a cut once, measure after the fact. It looks a little crooked, right? So you have to know what type of kid you're working with and just open their eyes to different opportunities. So they're in an investment club right now. Somebody we met through the Growth Factory from my dad created a children's investment club. My 8-year-old doesn't understand everything that these 12-year-olds in the class are getting, but just being exposed to different things, I think allows for more opportunity because you know what options are out there.
Yeah. And I know proximity as well, like you're talking about with your kids and bringing them on things. I know I've seen you at events when I've attended them at one of Mark's many parties that he throws, and just having that proximity and being in that world and lending your talents to it and seeing how it works and growing with it and going beyond it. I'm telling you that I really feel there's nothing better than providing whatever opportunity our kids might gravitate toward, and encouraging that and really nurturing that in them, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's finding a job, whether it's college, whether it's science research, whether it's completely professional sports, whatever that might be. My goodness, this is their time to figure that out, right?
Well, and I want to put them in uncomfortable situations, and I want to put them in rooms where you're not the smartest person in the room, right? So that's another thing that you've always taught us too. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. learn from others, listen more than you talk, right? Those are some of the principles that you've instilled in us. So carrying on those, the ones that have stuck and new ones I'm creating myself.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Oh yeah. So I'm kind of curious about actually, Mark, your guys' opinions about college as it relates to kids and entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff. So I heard that actually you went to UC Davis, which is cool. I have a lot of friends who went to UC Davis. I've been to Davis a bunch. But what was that like? Was college like a mandatory thing for you, Ashley? And like, Mark, was it like a mandatory thing, or was it something that you wanted to do?
So it wasn't ever an option for me. My mom, I know my dad has a different answer, but my mom, basically it was, you're going to go to college. You're going to go to college. It wasn't an option. I mean, you can tap on my brother. He didn't end up going and completing the 4 years. He went to the Marine Corps. So there was alternatives, but you couldn't do nothing. And it was probably that same principle growing up where we couldn't sit around and do nothing. So you don't have to do a certain sport or a certain activity, but you can't just do nothing. So it was more like setting a goal. And for me, college was the only option in my head. And so I love that principle was instilled in me. But I think we're finding out in my generation, that I don't need a college degree for what I do. I think it'll be interesting to see how that shapes in the future as to how we feel. I mean, right now I'm talking to about colleges with my kids, but I don't know that I really care that much. So mom would say it wasn't an option, but was it an option?
I think when you grow up with parents who are entrepreneurs, my parents didn't push college on me. I was a C student. My brother and sisters were all straight A's. So they looked at me and said, dude, I don't know if you really need it. You're more, go with your strengths, which is more on the social side of things, having a good social life. So that was, I guess I was probably steered that way, and I felt good about that. So I think we just have to look at what our strengths are and what we want to become. I don't think the biggest things I think that we learn in college are really not entrepreneurship specifically. You might learn, if you go to Davis, you might learn certain science or something like that really helps guide you in your career, which might be entrepreneurship. But I think really the best way to learn about entrepreneurship is to go be a part of an entrepreneurial endeavor, go work in an entrepreneurial business, be around people who are extremely driven. And I think that some of that rubs off on you, and great ideas surface when you commit. So to me, that's kind of the interesting thing is people want to discover entrepreneurship, and you never really discover what you love, in my opinion, until you commit. It's in that commitment where you decide whether you love it, you hate it, what you love about it. And it's in that commitment, in that blood, sweat, tears, where you find out who you are and what you want to become in your life. And for me, that didn't happen in high school. I only went briefly to college, but if you're just going through the motions, what discovery are you going to make? Because you're not committed.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's so you didn't graduate college then?
I went to Sierra twice. Sierra College is local community college. I showed up twice. I made it through one day, 2 times. And I had a job, and that job was, okay, so in the video store industry in the 80s, it was blowing up. And so I've got my video store business, feeling the peer pressure or guilt about not having a college degree. Well, I better start chipping away at my degree. I've got lines at the counter at my video stores, and I'm sitting through a computer science 10 class. I just couldn't be at work when I've got the cash register ringing like crazy down the street. So I couldn't get into it. And at some point, I just never looked back.
Well, and frankly, for me, the things that I use in my business today, and obviously as real estate professionals, we're all individual entrepreneurs. I learned most of it through high level sports or just being a part of a team on a sports team. I'm not going to say I learned none from college, but my degree is just something to have. I don't even know where I couldn't even find a diploma if somebody asked me. So I'm sure I learned some basic skills, but none of which have translated more than high level sports or being a part of a team.
I would say though to people listening that, and I've heard of this many times, that the relationships that we make in college can be very helpful for entrepreneurship or for our career. So I don't want to dissuade anybody from getting a degree. I do think it's good, but I think that there's been an overemphasis in checking that box as almost like a good fallback. You never know, you might need to get a job with the state or something. But the sooner you decide what you want to do, to me, it's like the sooner you decide what you want to do in life, probably the better. And then there's a compounding effect of those commitments and those investments that you make. And that compounding effect, especially for somebody like me who doesn't have a lot of talent, I've needed the time so that I could sort of build on the commitment and build on the mistakes even, so that it all adds up to something at the end of the day. But all that time you spend vacillating or wondering what I'm going to do, in some level is a waste.
Evan, was it forced in your house? Was college the only option, or what's your take?
Well, I dropped out of college, so that kind of sums that up. It was not forced. When I first went, I dropped out probably when I would have been like a senior, I believe, because I went to Sacramento State, the local college here. Then I transferred to an online college, and then I dropped out there. And when right out of high school, it was pretty much assumed that I would go to college, especially from my dad, who's more like traditional in that way. And I was always a very go with the flow kid. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. So I was like, I guess I'm going to college. Okay, whatever. And it got to the point where my dad he didn't actually, but like he pretty much like filled out the application for me. And was like, you're going to college. And I'm like, all right, I guess, whatever. And then I went to college, and it was pretty much just a big, expensive waste of time. At least for me personally. It's not the case for everyone, but I could probably cut off the things that I learned after probably like freshman year of high school, and I'd probably be just as fine now. The relationships and the social aspect, like kind of what Mark is saying, was the gold for me when it comes to school in general. But then in college, I didn't have a lot of that, especially because the school I went to was more of a commuter school. It didn't really have any culture, like somewhere like UC Davis or like Harvard or somewhere like that. People drove to school, I took their classes, and then they drove home. And that's exactly what I did.
I think things are changing in terms of entrepreneurship in college, and maybe some of the colleges are a little late to adopt it. I'm on the advisory board at Sac State for Entrepreneurship, Carlson Center. I'm also on an advisory board for Sierra College. I've spoken many times at William Jessup, and each of them are those, and Davis. I've got affiliations with some of my businesses at UC Davis and the Venture Catalyst and so on. But each of those colleges is embracing entrepreneurship and want to help instill entrepreneurial thinking in their students, not just in the business departments, but throughout the campus. So it's interesting to see that the appreciation for entrepreneurship, I feel like, is growing within college. And the leadership in those colleges that we mentioned, I think it has to be commended for rallying that, because not everybody is designed to go get the 4-year degree and then go get a job. Many people want to do something that's got more risk associated with it and more creativity associated with it on average, and really probably has a bigger upside as well.
Oh yeah, no, there were some hints of that too when I was there. I went back in 2017 or like 2016, early 2017. I graduated high school in 2016. And yeah, I saw some of that. I was in the music department when I was there. At first, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I bounced all over the place. So I wasn't very receptive to all of that kind of stuff. at that time. I was like, I drove there, I did my stuff, and then I just drove home. But that's
What did your mom say when you dropped out of college? Come on, man.
She was like, hell yeah, because then I became an entrepreneur and I did my then I was good.
See, but so I'm 35, so this was like 2004 or 5 when I graduated high school, and entrepreneurship wasn't popular then. It wasn't as trendy as it is now. So I hope it's not just a trend. I hope it takes off and continues to become more popular and expose new businesses and opportunities, because all of these colleges have a plethora of knowledge and opportunity that people just don't know what to do with, right? And so I think when I was a kid, it was like, I want to be an inventor, right? Inventor was the entrepreneur, but they couldn't really figure out what that meant. I'm not going to invent a type of a pen, but I might want to sell a lot of them, right? So I love seeing it, but it wasn't popular 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I think it's becoming more popular now. Yeah, I mean, especially because that's kind of how I feel like a lot of things are changing towards that. Like, it's no longer like you get your diploma and then it's pretty much like a golden ticket to get a job. Like, hey, I have a diploma, where's my job? It's not really how it works too much anymore, which is one of the reasons why I dropped out, because like I already had a business. I was editing and producing podcasts, and I've been doing that for years, and I've been making enough money to live on my own in a nice place. And I was like, well, wait, why am I doing this? Like, I already have the thing that college is supposed to get you. So I think it depends. If someone wants to be like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, but their passion requires a college degree, then hell yeah, go for it. But I definitely think it's no longer become like, I feel like college isn't really as much of a, like everyone should go, like it's that box you need to check off. You know, it's not quite that anymore. But again, it's a very like individual, it's a very, you know, each circumstance is different. But at least for me, I mean, you know, I already had a business, so. And then
Yeah.
she definitely supported me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's where he got the business, was because I had my podcast, which actually is this very podcast, Parent Entrepreneur Power, that I started way back in 2014, and got to the point where I was doing everything on my own. And I'm like, you know, I really can't keep editing and publishing this podcast. There are people who want me to coach them and consult with them and all that. And it's really getting difficult for me to do all of it. And so I went to him, I think it was probably 15, 16, and said,
Yeah.
you know, hey, do you want to learn this, how to do this thing and earn some extra money at the same time? And he's like, yeah, okay. And it was a perfect opportunity because it allowed him to learn how to schedule his own time,
Oh yeah.
get things done when it needed to get done,
Very
do it in the right
conducive to a
way.
high school like social life as well. Because I could, you know, I could do my work, what after school, do that, and then I'm free, and I'm also making money. I don't have to. I tried the real job thing. I worked at a Starbucks, and I think I lasted like a month or two before I quit. I was like, no, this sucks. I can't work in my pajamas. So what am I even doing here? So yeah, entrepreneurship was pretty big for me. Actually, are you gonna like, because we didn't ask you too much about this, are you gonna then like, what about when your kids get to college age? How are you gonna navigate that?
I'm going, if they're watching, you're going to college, right? You got to say it. It's a good backup plan. But in all reality, I want to just expose them to even what college is, right? Investigating. My son's probably one of those that is going to go to college because of his interests and his strengths. I always think it's a good fallback. So like you and I, we didn't know what we wanted to be out of high school. So I'm going to encourage it without forcing it, right?
Right.
I do think that I'm definitely going to be a promoter of them going to college. And if it doesn't end up working out, we will pivot at that point. But I'm going to promote it at this point because I think people need goals to have, and you need to have a goal set. And for them, going to college is a goal. If we change our goal, that's okay too. But I think for right now, that's a really clear-cut goal that I'm going to set for them.
Right. Yeah, it
But when we
helps
get
too
there,
going through
we might have to
school.
change.
Yeah. It helps going through school to have that kind of a goal as well. You know,
Yeah.
so I get that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough though, you know, especially like we've already talked about. Ashley, your mom really was pushing it, and your dad was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. And in our family, it's the opposite. My husband really was pushing it, and I'm like, I really could care less. I really, really want you to do what you want to do. And if you don't want to do it, if you haven't found anything that you really want, why in the world are we spending how many thousands of dollars a year to just have you do this just because it's expected? And for parents, it's really tough. I mean, I know my husband's family are immigrants, my family are immigrants, but his family are immigrants who really, his grandparents were like 8th grade education. And it was absolutely mandatory because, of course, in the Depression, education is the ticket to getting out of the quote hard work, really hard work of not having an education and not having the opportunities to be able to have jobs and security and all those things that people really wanted out of that time. And our society has shifted so drastically. Without people like you, Mark, the entrepreneurial opportunities at college level would not exist because of the actual framework of college. It's knowledge-based, it's research-based. They don't have the entrepreneurial ability. The professors don't. So they need people like you to come in from the outside and help formulate that kind of education, which I think is absolutely brilliant and is opening up so many opportunities for so many people to have a different experience in college rather than this, the standard. I go and I read and I research and I do this and I get a job at the end. That's brilliant. How have you found the faculty and the students and embracing this new direction for colleges that you help?
Yeah, so each school is a little bit different. I think you mentioned Davis is more of a community, and I think there's probably lends itself to science and invention, maybe more than maybe a community college. We had a meeting yesterday at Sierra, or for Sierra College. It was at a different place, but it's interesting because the people that grow up that are going to Sierra College don't have as much influence or affluence, wealth on average, as the people that are going to UC Davis. So they may have grown up in a household at Sierra College that they weren't really as exposed to the same kind of success on average as maybe somebody whose parent who goes to UC Davis or even William Jessup. So at Sierra, I think one of the things that happens in college when someone comes in that from the business community and talks about entrepreneurship and success, it really exposes them to a different way of thinking in many cases. If your mom and dad were state workers or maybe worked at the grocery store or something like that, or maybe didn't have a job, maybe you had a tough house, a tough upbringing, maybe there was even welfare and so on, you might end up at Sierra College to sort of figure it out as your next step after high school. That person hasn't spent a lot of time with people who have built $100 million, $200 million companies that are doing venture capital investments that believe that anything is possible. They just haven't been exposed to that. And I think that exposure can can turn on light bulbs for certain individuals that can turn some of that hardship or some of those other life circumstances, they can turn that into action that can be really positive for themselves once they begin to believe in themselves and maybe have a better understanding of maybe what's possible. So I think in many ways, bringing the private sector business community into the college arena, it's very helpful, because the average professor at a university, right, they're a state worker, they're kind of like a government worker that's getting a salary and maybe they're on tenure. On average, they're not entrepreneurially oriented. They're more get a safe job oriented. And so I think the different perspective is very enlightening for most students.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really glad you put it that way. And I'm really glad you brought that up about the community college. I mean, that's where I went. I came from a blue collar household, and Basically, high school graduation, I was the first person in my entire family to attend college, let alone graduate. And it wasn't until I was exposed to my husband's family, and we met very young. We've been together since we were 16, so high school sweethearts. And his family had such that strong, really push to go to college. And I was totally, who cares, kind of attitudes. Very similar to Evan. I had no clue what I wanted to do, but it was like, this is what you have to do. And so I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. I went to community college. It took me 4 years of community college. Thank goodness it was free at that time, before I was able to figure out what I wanted to do and go on to the university. But if I didn't get that, I was exactly that person you were talking about that was like, okay, all I'm thinking about is survival.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in that survival, how do I provide food and shelter and transportation? When you're in that mindset, you don't have room for dreams in that respect. And so to take care of that first and to be exposed to the opportunities that yes, you can have the basics taken care of, food, shelter, transportation, you've got that. That's great. You're here at a community college. You've obviously taken that step and want to work toward that. Now let's go the next step. And that is, I mean, we can all, because we've already overcome so many obstacles as parents, we can provide that leg up for our kids. And what an amazing, wonderful thing that you're doing as well, to actually expose people and expose young people to that leg up, to that opportunity that may not have had it anywhere else. What better way can we improve our world than to have that opportunity for young people? I'm so excited. That's fantastic.
And Dad, maybe some of the things that the Carlson Center is doing at Sac State, I mean, they're really doing a lot over there. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, it's Dale Carlson. He was the founder of the Sleep Train, had a really significant exit, several $100 million. Decided to take some of those proceeds and donate it to Sac State, and they created the Carlson Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And so Dale, I think, really, he wanted to give back to his alma mater, but we've also rallied the other colleges, William Jessup, Sierra, Davis, and so on, to sort of be a part of this community effort to drive the mindset around entrepreneurship. And so we're reaching into the student population, but even more than that, we're reaching outwardly to the community, and we're providing opportunity to go through workshops and really gain an education around entrepreneurship. And they've got a location right there at Sac State that sort of is the hub for everything. So I think that the sky's the limit. I've been on the advisory board since it started. It's been going on for a few years, and I think great things are happening around the region, around the Sacramento ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I think Sac State and the Carlson Center is sort of at the epicenter. They're a hub of entrepreneurship for the region.
Wow,
That's pretty awesome.
wow.
I love that.
Imagine growing up in that household when those are the conversations you're having with your dad. So that's one of the things where you said, were you an entrepreneur as a kid? No, but these were the discussions that we were having in our home and just thinking at a higher level.
Which I think is very conducive to being an entrepreneur, because it kind of, it's not like, hey, you're going to be an entrepreneur when you grow up or something like that, but it's having these conversations which kind of lend themselves to being an entrepreneur, because that's the best place, I feel like, to implement these kinds of mindset shifts, right? As opposed to being an employee.
To my left here, there's a picture of Ronald Reagan, and one of his quotes that I believe strongly in is, "All great change in America begins at the dinner table." And I think that so many times we look outwardly to look for guidance, when really right there at the dinner table is really how we shape those minds. So you gained, Evan, a lot from what happened in your family, a good contrast between your mom and dad to make you who you are. And I think so many times we sort of, as parents, we lose sight of the influence that we do have and we need to take time, put the video games away, put sports on hold for a second, and just talk to each other about what matters most. And I think if there's, somebody listening to a podcast like, on entrepreneurship and parenting, it's spend time at the dinner. It doesn't have to be the dinner table. Spend time talking to your kids. It could be in the car ride somewhere, but those serious, deep conversations that I have with both my kids, those are everything in shaping a young mind. Luckily they didn't turn out exactly like me, but they got enough of some of the core values that I think have helped them in entrepreneurship for sure, but I think have also helped them to become successful.
Well, and just in life decisions too. And we, as busy as we were, we made it a priority to sit at the dinner table. How's your day? We go around the table and say, what's your favorite this? So now I do that with my kids. And it was just, it wasn't easy, but it was a huge priority. And one other thing we did, and I know you have this, Dad, on the back of his business card are his goals. He would make us set goals every year. So now my kids, we do summer bucket lists. We do a 5th grade bucket list, right? So we don't call them goals per se, but it's my creative way of getting them to say, not just about where do you want to go on vacation? What do you want to do? And that's how I found out my daughter wants to answer the phone at my work, right? So how can I help facilitate some of those things? It's not just about fun, video games, and friends, really deep conversations. And my kids can talk to me about anything. So I hope that continues. And, I learned that from you.
Yeah. Well, there'll probably be a gap where they don't want to talk to you about everything, but then hopefully it comes back at some level.
I probably don't want to know about all those things at that time anyways.
I don't know if it'll be 14 to 18. You might not get all the scoop, but
I was just protecting you. It's okay.
Keep saying that. Oh my goodness. That is so amazing.
That's amazing. Well, as we, kind of wind down the conversation, we like to end with a big question. And I guess we'll have each of you guys answer it, which I think is interesting. But Mark, you first. If you were to die tomorrow, what would be the entrepreneurial legacy that you would leave behind for your kids and I guess grandkids as well, to use as they, continue to grow into entrepreneurs themselves?
Well, I think that my kids and I think my grandkids would remember me as crazy in some ways, in an obsessive sort of way, and maybe that from an entrepreneurial standpoint, that person that tries to dream really big. I mean, on my podcast, I talk about being on a mission to ignite an entrepreneurial revolution right here in the hometown we love. My dream of having 100 million business partners in my backyard that love each other. Those things have already begun to happen. If I die tomorrow, I'll be partway through some of those efforts. But I think there's been enough traction in what I've been working on for these last several years, where people are going to pick up the ball and run with it, right? So I have teammates that are going to carry on the mission, and so hopefully my children and my grandchildren will sort of be able to see that and be a part of that, because I've invited my kids into my world, and Ashley is integrated into my entrepreneurial ecosystem. It's not mine, that's the one thing I really got lucky about with both kids and my wife is we're building a family compound. So we're all going to have the family dinners together, which we already do, but it's going to be more regular. But they're going to remember, I think, these events, these parties that we threw, where the most influential people in Sacramento got together to talk about how to build something entrepreneurial in our town. And that's begun. And so hopefully my grandkids, they're already a part of that at some level. They're showing up at our parties as well. So it's gonna stick. If I die tomorrow, I'm hoping that the kids will keep the legacy rolling. But my teammates, for sure, they're committed to making this keeping this dream alive. And so I do believe that we're almost to the point where it could carry on without me, as long as my teammates stay committed. And I think my grandkids will forever remember me as the crazy grandpa that, loves sports, but also had this weird obsession with entrepreneurship.
I love it. And Ashley, what about you?
I think he's selling himself short. So let's hope I don't die for a really long time.
Right.
But for my kids, family is always first, and we do the right thing. So whatever you do in life, follow your heart, obviously, but we are good people, law-abiding citizens with yes if attitudes, right? So anything is possible if you put your heart to it. They have opportunities that I was never exposed to. I hope that they can continue to see all of the opportunities that their grandfather has provided for them. And really the name that we've built within the community. I mean, we're extremely community oriented. So anything that we can do to help others, family, friends, community, I know that's, something we always use, but follow your heart. Your family is always first, and put your mind to anything you do and you'll be successful. So I think we can continue to instill those values. If they want to be in real estate, they've got a great database ready for them, but that's still a ways away. So let's hope I live for another 100 years, which would be a miracle. And we can have some fun with them as I watch them go down their entrepreneurial journey, just like my dad and I are doing together.
Absolutely. I think we're all going to live to 130 anyway, right? Science is,
135, 135.
Yeah.
Ready.
There you go. You got another 100 years to go. You're good.
Yep.
As long as I have all my teeth, I'm good.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I had a fun conversation for sure.
Fun. Well, I mean, I feel like we talked about my favorite subjects, my family and, my friends or my business partners and the entrepreneurial community right here in the hometown we love.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. It's an honor to be here. So anything you guys need, we're here to help.
For people who are interested in you guys and what you do, where can they find out more about you?
For me, you can go to haneybiz.com, or you can hit me up on social media at the Mark Haney.
Yeah, and for me, I have a website too, but I'm a personal person, so add me on Facebook or Instagram, Ashley Haney, and I would love to chat and sit down anytime.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're honored.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Parent Entrepreneur Power. Hopefully you came away with valuable tools you can use in your business, life, and relationship with your kids. If you want to hear more about our mission, or if you want more insights into cultivating your parent entrepreneur power, join our movement to make entrepreneurship more accessible to parents and their kids at parententrepreneurpower.com.